The story begins deep inside a forest, where a search operation is underway. Two dogs wander into an underground cave. Inside, they find water and begin to drink. But as soon as they do, something strange happens. The two dogs look at each other in an unsettling way, and after some time, their bodies fuse together, merging into one. The scene then shifts to a couple, Tim and Millie. Millie is a schoolteacher, and Tim is an aspiring musician. They've been together for a long time, but lately, distance has started to grow between them. Not long ago, Tim's parents passed away. The tragedy left him mentally shaken, and their relationship began to suffer. Hoping to repair things and grow closer again, the couple decides to move out to the countryside. But soon after, Millie proposes marriage. Tim is shocked. Instead of saying yes, he hesitates. The hesitation leaves Millie embarrassed, making her feel uncertain about Tim's commitment. Tim quickly apologizes, saying he just didn't know how to react. But even then, he avoids intimacy with her. That night as they sleep, Tim overhears Millie whispering that they are staring at us. When he looks up, he sees two figures watching them. But it was only a dream. The next day, Tim and Millie move into a house near the forest. Almost immediately, Tim notices a foul smell coming from inside. He follows the odor and realizes it's seeping down from the ceiling. Up there, he discovers several dead rats, grotesquely fused together in a disturbing way. Tim throws them out. Meanwhile, Millie begins her new teaching job. There, she meets Jaime, a senior teacher who happens to live nearby. The next day, Millie and Tim go hiking together in the forest. But as they walk, they notice strange bells hanging from the trees. Then, a sudden heavy downpour leaves them lost. They have no idea which direction their home is in. In the chaos, Tim slips and falls into a cave. Millie rushes to help him, but ends up falling in as well. There's no phone signal down here. And inside the cave, they find the same kind of strange bells. Suspicious, Tim and Millie begin to wonder if a cult might be living here. To survive, Tim gathers wood and builds a small fire. Millie grows thirsty, so Tim gives her their last remaining bottle of water. He himself drinks directly from the cave's water. As they sit there, Tim opens up about one of his deepest childhood traumas. He recalls how, when he was a boy, his father once asked him to clean his room because of a terrible smell. But Tim couldn't find anything. Eventually, his father stepped in and discovered a dead rat hidden above a warm lamp. Every time Tim had used the light, the rat's body had been slowly roasting. And for weeks, without realizing it, Tim had been breathing in the stench of decay. Though he eventually forgot about it, the memory came rushing back after his parents' death. Because when he entered their room, that same foul smell filled the air. His father had died in the room. And upon seeing his lifeless body, Tim's mother had a psychotic breakdown. She sat next to the corpse for days, smiling, breathing in the odor without even noticing, until, eventually, she too died. Later that night, after Millie falls asleep, Tim begins breathing heavily. And strangely, the entire cave seems to come alive, almost as if the cave itself is breathing with him. But once again, it turns out to be just another dream. When morning comes, Tim and Millie wake to find their legs stuck together. They assume some sticky substance inside the cave caused it. With effort, they manage to pull themselves apart. The two finally climb out of the cave, but now, their legs bear raw wounds from the separation. After this, the two finally make it back home. There, Millie asks Tim to give her a massage. But as Tim begins, something strange happens. He stares at her body in a disturbing way, almost as if slipping into a trance. He presses down hard on her shoulders, the force in his hands growing so intense that Millie begins to feel pain. She quickly stops him, asking what he's doing. But Tim himself doesn't seem to realize what just happened. Shaken, Millie grabs the car keys and drives away. Meanwhile, Tim steps into the shower and suddenly slips back into that same trance-like state. As Millie's car takes turns along the road, Tim's body starts twisting in the exact same directions. As though something inside him is trying to break free and reach her. His body strains and contorts painfully. He even begins to hurt himself in the process. Then, all at once, he snaps back to reality. Terrified, Tim rushes to see a doctor. The doctor assumes Tim is mentally unstable because of his parents' death. He prescribes him muscle relaxation pills. And while talking to him, the doctor mentions a couple who mysteriously went missing some time ago. Back home, Tim searches online about them and later shares it with Millie. He even jokes, "If I ever die, make sure you delete my social media posts." That evening, Jaime comes over to their house. The three sit down for drinks, and during the conversation, Tim asks Jaime about the cave. Jaime admits it once belonged to a cult but insists that the cult no longer exists. The conversation slowly turns sour, with Tim and Millie criticizing each other. And after Jaime leaves, Tim teases Millie, saying Jaime probably likes her. Then suddenly Tim kisses her, but their lips stick together, fused unnaturally. Millie pulls back, angry. She yells that first he keeps his distance from her, and now suddenly he comes too close for just a few seconds. Tim himself doesn't seem to understand what happened. That night, while Millie is asleep, she feels as if someone is tugging at her hair. Startled, she turns on the lie, and finds Tim's mouth full of her hair, swallowing it. Horrified, Millie forcefully yanks her hair out of his mouth, breaking off several strands in the process. The next morning, Tim discovers strands of Millie's hair inside his mouth. But he brushes it off and prepares to leave for a concert in the city. Millie tries to talk about what happened last night, but Tim insists he was unconscious. Millie drops Tim off at the train station. But the farther she drives away from him, the stranger Tim begins to feel again. He swallows one of the muscle relaxation pills, but it has no effect. Compelled, Tim rushes straight to Millie's school. She spots him arriving and quickly pulls him into the washroom, demanding, "What are you doing here?" But before she can get an answer, Tim kisses her again. This time, they become intimate right there in the bathroom. For the first time in a long while, Millie feels happy. But soon, they realize they're stuck fused together once again, unable to pull apart. At that exact moment, a student walks in. Embarrassed, Millie shoves Tim away with all her strength. Moments later, Jaime arrives. Millie, trying to cover for herself, walks out alone. Jaime reminds her that this is the student's bathroom, she should have been using the staff facilities. He even suggests she should clean herself up. Millie grows furious. She yells at Tim that because of him, she could have been fired today. Or even arrested. She accuses him of staying distant for so long, only to suddenly show up at her school and put everything at risk. The two get into a heated argument about their failing relationship. Tim insists something is happening to him, something he can't control. But Millie refuses to listen. Instead, she storms out and heads straight to Jaime's house. Millie apologizes to Jaime, but he tells her not to worry and invites her inside. He offers her a glass of water, and as they sit, Millie begins opening up about the problems between her and Tim. Jaime responds by sharing an old Greek myth. He explains that when the gods first created humans, they were whole 2 faces, 4 arms and 4 legs. But Zeus feared they were too powerful, so he split them into 2 halves. Ever since, each person spends their life searching for the missing part of themselves, their soulmate. Jaime believes that in the same way, Millie and Tim are soulmates. We also learn that Jaime once had a husband, and their relationship went through struggles similar to Tim and Millie's. But unlike them, Jaime and his partner managed to work things out. Just then, Millie notices Tim standing outside, watching her through the window. Tim apologizes, and the two hold hands as they walk away together. Later that night, as Tim sits in deep thought, he realizes something chilling. The missing couple the doctor had mentioned were last seen near that very forest, close to the same cave. Suddenly, Millie's body slams against Tim's room door, as if she's being pulled toward him. It's as though her body itself is desperate to break through and reach him. Tim rushes to open the door and grabs her, but Millie is trapped in a trance-like state. He slaps her, jolting her back to consciousness. Tim tries to explain. He tells her that ever since they entered that cave, strange things have been happening to him. And now, it's starting to happen to her too. He shows her how their bodies keep sticking together. But Millie refuses to believe him. Tim urges her to bring her hand closer to his to see for herself. But she refuses, even though she finds herself unable to pull away completely. Tim insists, "Something happened to us. I know it. Something is wrong." They decide to sleep in separate rooms. But as soon as Tim lies down, his body begins dragging itself across the floor toward Millie's room. He wakes up and tries to fight it, but at the same time, Millie is experiencing the exact same thing. Her body being pulled toward Tim without her control. Confused and terrified, they clasp hands. And immediately, their hands begin to fuse together. Tim says the only way is to take the muscle relaxant pills. Millie grabs them from the drawer, crushes them, and the two inhale the powder. Tim instructs her that they must push themselves apart, no matter how much it hurts. They try enduring agonizing pain. But soon, the pills overwhelm them and they pass out. When Tim wakes up the next morning, Millie is preparing to cut them apart. She pours whiskey for Tim, and strangely, even without drinking, Millie begins to feel the drunken haze herself. Their bodies so connected that his intoxication transfers into her. Tim argues against the plan, calling it too dangerous. But as their bodies begin to stir and twitch again, he reluctantly agrees. Millie cuts them apart. For now, the pills are still in their system, preventing their bodies from fusing again. But the effect won't last long. Millie insists they need to go to a hospital, but she suddenly remembers her car keys are at Jaime's house. So Tim stays behind, while Millie heads over to Jaime's. Meanwhile, Tim quietly gathers ropes, a flashlight, and other supplies, and sets off alone, straight toward the cave. At Jaime's house, Millie makes a horrifying discovery. Jaime is, in fact, part of the same cult. While searching for him, she stumbles into a room. On the screen, Jaime's wedding tape is playing. But the people in the video don't look anything like Jaime. Instead, two strangers are shown. They enter the cave and begin a ritual, and their bodies slowly start fusing together. Just then, Jaime appears behind Millie. He reveals the horrifying truth. He is the fused human created from those very two men. He warns Millie to accept the fusion willingly, or suffer terrible consequences. Back at the cave, Tim arrives, and is instantly dragged down, stuck to the floor of the cave. There, he comes face to face with the missing couple, now grotesquely fused into a single, deformed creature. Meanwhile, Jaime slashes Millie's skin, preparing to force the ritual. But Millie manages to escape. At the same time, Tim breaks free from the creature and runs for his life. Both of them flee desperately, until finally, they meet again at their driveway. But as soon as they see each other, their bodies begin pulling together once more. Tim admits they can't keep fighting this forever. He says there's only one way to stop it. With a knife in his hand, he looks at Millie. But before using it, he finally proposes. He tells her, "Without you, I am nothing. You are everything to me. I love you so much." But what he truly intends is to sacrifice himself, so Millie can finally be free. Millie pleads with him not to do it, but their blood begins to mix. Millie, losing too much blood, starts to faint. With her last breath, she whispers that he doesn't need to die for her. Tim breaks down crying. Moments later, Millie regains consciousness. And to her shock, she sees Tim has fused his hand with hers, transferring his blood supply into her body. At last, the two accept their fate. They choose to fuse together willingly. To Millie's favorite song, they begin to dance. Their bodies melting into one another, their eyes locking together as they become one. The scene then shifts forward in time. Millie's parents arrive at their house for dinner. But when the door opens, it isn't Millie or Tim standing there. It's something else. Their fused form, the perfect blend of both. And with that, friends, this haunting story comes to an end. Tell us in the comments what you thought of this explanation. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.